Wholeness and Balanced Vibrations. It's Mystic Mommy, aka the Ebony Hempress. I'm trying to get Ramal in here. Okay, I was about to say, what? What is the
Peace, Hefen.
problem? That's crazy. Wow.
I'm doing
How
well.
how are you
I'm doing
today?
well. This is a
Peace,
pretty
wholeness.
relaxed day. I've been just chilling. Didn't really do a lot. How about yourself?
That's awesome. Um, yeah, same here. Honestly, I was off work today, so it was a pretty chill day for me. Kind of just hung around the house and tried to get my plans together and clean up a little bit. But yeah, I made dinner, baked some really good
Nice.
chicken.
Nice.
So yeah.
I feel it. I feel it. It's like
Yeah.
Thursday? Wednesday?
It is Thursday. Yeah, I have weird off days. My off days are in the middle of the week right
Mm.
now. It's unfortunate, but I used to have weekends off. So I'm trying to just like take one for the team right now.
Yeah.
I guess you could say that. But I really appreciate you being here, and taking the time out to let me interview you and kind of, share some of your light, your
Mm-hmm.
expertise with my audience. It really means a lot to me. And honestly, I was gonna have like a list of like questions ready to go, but I kind of lost track of time. But I have an idea of what I wanted to get
Yeah,
into.
yeah, yeah.
So.
You want to start?
First off, I would just like to know like more about your background. Like what brought you into studying Kemetic spirituality? Like
Sure.
what
Background.
brought you to that?
And I found it dope that you refer to me as my government name because it's like I'm in a different paradigm with my old name because it's still my government name, and I'm transitioning to Hefen on Tepra. So I kind of forget who still knows Ramal versus Hefen because it's been as time goes on, some people were like, wait, Ramal, Hefen, wait, which one is it? Some people are just like Hefen, you know, and so yeah, from Chicago, born and raised, and grew up Christian, Baptist Christian, and basically,
Okay.
not to go into the whole hero's journey, but I would say that my faith in Christianity mixed with my lifestyle of wanting to be a kind of like free spirit. I like to enjoy things that bring me joy, that bring me pleasure. I like to travel, hang with my friends. I really enjoy dancing, so I used to travel for festivals a lot. I used to enjoy gaming. I just really enjoyed having fun, right? Later, I found out, like in my astrology, it's like, oh, you really like to have fun. Like you came in this lifetime to have fun, right? And so after years of like basically, like a lot of youth, just enjoying pleasure seeking in all of its forms. School wasn't too bad. I was pretty decent in school, played all types of sports, went to college for a year, dropped out, went to the military for 7 years. Kind of just living, I would say, a relatively a great life, especially for a young black man in America. Both of my parents poured a lot into me and my siblings, so I was kind of able to. I would say it was a privilege for sure and a blessing to be able to not necessarily go through the same type of pitfalls and stresses that a lot of other people of our culture find themselves in. You know, but what that led me
Sure.
down to was it's kind of like in America, in the United States, if you don't, like the glitz and the glam, the money, the clothes, the cars, the house, your friends, a lot of things can be very externally, it can be externally enjoyable and beautiful, and it can really pull you in. But what I found a lot throughout my experience is that as much as I was able to have fun and enjoy the pleasures of life, it lacked substance, right? And I started to the pressure of a lifestyle that lacked substance. It started to subconsciously catch up to me at around the age of 24, right? And this is when I found myself in a situation in the military where the stresses of the job and the issues I was facing became too much for me to handle, in the sense of like, when you're dealing with day-to-day problems, if you're not centered, if you're not balanced, it can really throw you off. You know what I'm saying? Like burnout, you're yelling, you find yourself, your blood pressure, headache, you're just like, yo, can I catch a break? Right. And that's where I found myself in a situation of I needed to turn back to the Most High, because I have been living a life where I wasn't really centered in myself, and therefore I wasn't centered with God. Right. So growing up a Christian, it was like, okay, I know about the Bible, I know about going to church, I know about what it means to be a Christian generally, but I wasn't really living it. I believed it, I had faith in it, but I wasn't really living that life. And so when I started to like really renew my faith in Christianity, like seriously, this is when my life began to change. But for me, when I get into things, I really get into things. Like I want to take a rock, turn the rock upside down, look at the soil, and dig under the soil and feel like, how does the plant, root? I get into the roots of things. And so, it definitely served me. It was very beneficial for me to connect back to the Christian lifestyle and straighten myself up. But fast forward a year and a half after my redevotion, my becoming a born again Christian, fast forward a year and a half, all of a sudden, throughout this time period, I started noticing that in my reality, when I would focus on things, they would come to manifest. Okay, I would have an idea in my mind,
Yes.
or a thought in my mind, and it would come to fruition. Okay, this happened pretty shortly after I devoted myself to God again. That when I started cleansing my body, stopped like chasing women, stopped video games. I started just like, I wanted to focus my mind. I wanted to cleanse my body. I'm like, yo, the stresses of the military is too much right now. I don't need to, I don't want to put anything else in my body that would further distract me, you see? And what this did was it kind of allowed my brain to operate at a level that I wasn't used to, because I was constantly used to, pouring things in that kind of had me distracted, basically. And so I think that this
Yeah.
combination of devotion to, God, and cleansing the body and the stresses of the military, it worked like it kind of had a phoenix effect, the butterfly effect. All that, yeah, all that pressure creating, a caterpillar to a butterfly, right? And so eventually,
Definitely.
when I'm starting to notice things that I'm thinking about coming into my reality, I'm like, yo, like, I didn't necessarily ask Jesus for it. I didn't necessarily ask God for it. Is this the devil? Is the devil bringing me things into my reality? Because I'm like, no, like for real. I'm like, where is this coming from? Because it could be the devil. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do I know, right? Um, right? No, like for real. I even have it in my journal
Yeah.
where one day I was doing a meditation, and this is the first time I'm meditating after cleansing my body, and all of a sudden I feel a force. I can only describe it as a force, an energy coming from the bottom of my spine up to my stomach, up through my chest. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm in meditation. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm freaked out. Is there a demon inside me? I'm like, there's an evil spirit inside me. I don't know what's going on. I done messed up. Like, this is bad. So, but I stayed
My
focused. I'm like, okay, this
goodness.
energy is spiraling inside me. This energy is spiraling. And I'm like, okay, it makes sense to bring it up to my mind, so that, and when I brought it up to my mind, all of
Yeah.
a sudden my meditative state became more vibrant, more aware. Okay. Again, we're talking about cleansing the body. We're talking about meditation. We're talking about healthy living, a level of sobriety, just all that stuff. So it's a lot of change, right? And so
Yes.
at the
Yeah.
time, I wrote in my journal, I'm like, I don't know what this cyclical energy moving up my spine was, but it was crazy. And then fast forward a year and a half later, you hear about this Kundalini rise, which, there's levels to that, right? But basically our bodies, when we take care of our vessels, when we relax, when we really tune in ourselves, our body releases energy, right? It like unlocks. Okay.
Right.
And I want to say that the process
Mhm.
of seeking to cleanse the body, meditating, the process of wanting to learn who I was, because did I had lived a life of just kind of involving myself in things that were constantly toxic in one way or another, whether
Mhm.
it was
Sure.
sex, whether it was escapism with video games, whether it was drinking, whether it was different substances. It was always something that I was trying to use to escape from my reality, right? And so after I became a born again Christian. A year and a half later, within this year and a half, I'm constantly kind of learning a little bit here and there, like, meditation, yoga seems like it doesn't. I heard yoga was evil, but like, I really need to stretch, like I need to stress. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And I'm like crystals, I like read the Bible again, and I'm like, well, the priest had crystals on his plates. So, they were using crystals. Like this stuff is coming to me
Mhm.
intuitively, right? And then finally,
Yeah.
it had came to a point with my relationship with Christianity, where I had been doing enough research and reading to see that I wasn't quite comfortable with the history and how things played out. And so I came to a moment where I was like, you know what? I had wrote it in my journal. I said, Christ, it's been a good journey, but I gotta I gotta go my separate ways. Like I was like, even like I'm thankful for the journey we had together, but I gotta go I feel confident that I gotta go my separate ways with this, like out of respect, right? And so you're good. You're
Okay.
good.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I gotta ask something about that. Um, because I've always felt the need to ask people how
Hmm.
they communicate with
Hmm.
like God, their idea of what God is. How do they know they're talking to God or whatever? So, I mean, Christ or Jesus,
Hmm.
Yahshua, however you spoke to this entity or, God, whatever you
Hmm.
decide that he is to you. I mean, like, what was that like? I mean, did you guys have like an actual dialogue
No,
or was
this
it
was
like,
okay. There's two significant things with this. At first, when I became born again Christian, I don't know if I learned it externally or if I started doing it intuitively. But when I would go into meditation, I would go into meditation and I would imagine a conversation with a version of Ramal who was completely righteous, who had long locks, basically like a Christ-like Ramal. Like what would a Christian look like if they truly devoted themselves to Christ, right? And it's like, okay, I don't know why I came to that understanding, but like it's like the personification of myself. It helped me look to someone who was something I can relate to, like a big brother. And I got big brothers, right? But this is a big brother who like is spiritual, righteous, holy person, right? And I guess some people, they
Mhm.
would have never done that with themselves. They would have just said Christ. You see, but for me, it was never like an actual voice, right? It was me talking to whatever I imagined it to be, right? I never got that reciprocal, oh, I clearly hear that this is an
Okay.
entity that I'm talking to, right? It's like I said, born again devotion. So I'm pouring into
Mhm.
this, and I'm not necessarily
Yeah.
hearing anything back. I'm just,
Okay.
I'm investing my time, my effort, my imagination into this. So when it came to like, all right, I'm gonna go my separate ways, something about my relationship with Christianity brought, again, going to that meditative place or going to my journal. I said, hey, this process of being redevoted in my entire life of calling myself a Christian, it feels necessary for me to acknowledge that I'm separating myself, right? I don't know if I would assume God is hearing me. I would assume, see, but like I separated myself from Christ, but at the same time, I had an understanding that there's still a Most High. So I had made a distinction, because some people say that Christ is God,
Right.
you see? But with my research, I was able to
Right.
separate the two and say that there's still a Most High that I'm connected to. But I no longer feel
Right.
comfortable or the need to like use the Christ or Jesus Christ figure, archetype, entity to facilitate that relationship, you see? So it wasn't like a whole conversation. This is, I'm gonna tell you, basically imagination, like, but it definitely works. It
Okay.
definitely,
I mean,
yeah,
definitely your imagination is very
yeah,
powerful. So yeah, I can
yeah.
definitely follow along with
Mm-hmm.
that. That's really interesting. Um, so I mean, now where you're at in your journey, do you have like a better communication channel like with the Most High, or like how does that look for you when you're communicating or like having fellowship with
Mm-hmm.
like the universe or
So
whatever you like to
so
call it?
this is what it looks like. You ever heard a book called The Alchemist? Wait, you have heard of The Alchemist?
The Alchemist?
Yes, I remember.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
so
I've read The
this
Alchemist.
is what it started. Remember I told you that you think about things and then they appear in your reality? You know, I don't know if you the
Definitely. Yeah.
one thing about The Alchemist that uh, is what probably got it banned. I don't. It's not still banned, but it was banned at one point in the United States. Is The
Mhm.
Alchemist presents you the narrative of how to look for omens. Okay, and
Yes.
I didn't realize it
Mhm.
at the time, but what the spiritual community calls omens, or what the synchronicities,
Like
right? So
synchronicities,
it
right?
took time. It took
Yes.
a couple years, right? At first, I didn't sense energy. Like I didn't think that like I'm like, okay, well, obviously the spiritual girls they can sense energy, because I never really came across guys who would do it. I'm like, obviously all these spiritual women they can sense energy, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what that feels like, right? But one thing I did notice
Hmm.
was the synchronicities. Okay, and the synchronicities were like patterns, like the 111s, the angel
Yeah.
numbers. You know, I'm saying something, I'm thinking it, then it pops up on the news. I'm like, what?
I feel like synchronicity is like the universe's version of like
Exactly
an
what it is.
algorithm.
That's
You know,
exactly what.
that's
No,
like what it
I
feels like
think
at
that
least.
algorithms in our cell phones mimic the we will say things, and the cell phone is not like, I think it's actually working in our reality, right? I think if you were to turn off your cell phone and
Yeah.
think about something and then get back on your cell phone, it would pop up on your cell phone, like in your news feed or in your social media feed. You're like, well, the cell phone's off, how would it know that? Well, I don't know what they're doing, but they got the phones connected to the universal algorithm. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
3 days after I said, Christ, I got to go my separate ways. 3 days, I came across the Mental Netter, Volume 1 by Ramal for Amen. 3 days later, and
Really.
when I got into numerology, I found out my lucky number is 3. Okay, lucky number. Numerology is a whole thing, but it's not a coincidence. 3 days later,
Is that
you
like your
you can
psychic
say that,
number,
but we
three,
we
or
each have numbers that, let's just say you want to put 3 cards on your table. Maybe you want to carry 3 crystals in your rock, maybe, or in your purse. Maybe you want to carry $3 on you at all times. Either way, whatever your lucky number is, if you start having this number around you more,
yeah,
it can benefit you more. So I chose my apartment like third floor
definitely.
and made sure I had the number. I had made sure my apartment number added up to number 3, and I'm on the third floor. I did that just because that's what I do with working with these. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So synchronicities are,
Okay.
yes, they're getting
That's pretty
stronger.
cool.
They're getting strong.
They really are. It's like almost out
It's
of
normal.
hand. Like, but it's like what, I don't know. I guess I'm still one of those people that are trying to figure out like what they really mean like in that situation. It's like
Yeah.
kind of ambiguous sometimes, but it still feels really important.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
It's
it
like,
is. It is. They're definitely, well, that's the thing with a spiritual system. Okay, different systems give you a different framework to understand the synchronicities. Otherwise, you're trying to understand it by yourself for the first time, and it's like, okay, what could what could
Right.
now I can
Yeah.
look at certain colors: white, green, yellow, blue, red, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, August, September, October, November, and either 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can, because of my spiritual system, I can understand what the message is saying. So maybe sometimes the
Sure.
message is saying you need to work on unifying with other people. You need to work on your selflessness. Maybe you need to work on your moral compass and make sure you're giving, seeking nothing in return. Working on love, right? Um, you need to work on being at peace. Don't let anything influence your. Don't let any external things influence your decision making. Different, and it's wisdom, right? It's like it's wisdom, and it gives you the opportunity for character development. This is what they mean by simulation. This is what they mean by universal
Mm-hmm.
algorithm. Okay, it's like so. Okay, so we live in an algorithm. If this is all coded, if this is all simulation, if we are in God's divine design, why? Right? Like why? Like
Right.
why to where are we going? You see what I'm saying? We're seeing these synchronicities. I was having a conversation with this person, and then all of a sudden I get on the phone call, and the next person was thinking about the same thing. Like what is the relevance? You see? Um, and it has a lot to do with the fact that the things that we focus on, we draw into us. Okay. The things that we put our emotional energy into, we start to bring more of that into our life. You see,
Right.
um, it has to do with that certain situations that we find ourselves in are a test. You get an A, you get a B, you get a C, you get a D or an F. Okay. And in certain situations, you are going to experience what triggers you. And this is what the Kemetic teachings are. This is what I'm cultivating and understanding. Ultimately, God brings you to certain situations to see if you pass or fail, to see if you grow or you remain the same or you regress, right? One big, I don't want to say video game because life is pretty serious, but the next time you have a conversation with your mom, right? Are you going to still get triggered, or have you learned that, you know what, I love my mom, it's peace, the next time, you go to work and your
Yeah.
boss, here comes that freaking boss, here we come again. Is that boss going to get under your skin, or are you centered and are you devoted? And instead of letting that boss get under your skin, just you remain solid, you remain still, you remain hatep, at peace, amen. And you allow this energy to do what it always does, but it doesn't phase you. You see, because now you're, from the Kemetic philosophy, now you start to cultivate your oneness with God. And one of the most important, powerful identities that you can have with the Most High is that of peace. Okay? Because when we're peaceful,
Mm-hmm.
yes, there's going to be obstacles. There's going to be adversaries. There's always going to be challenges. They're literally not going anywhere. I don't care how rich you are. I don't care how in love
Right.
you are. I don't care how many kids. I don't care if you have your beautiful children. I don't care what's going on with you. You're going to always face challenges. So what the Kemetic culture discovered, like many African cultures, is that there's a hierarchy in the way that we react to things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we can all, if when we always center ourselves with peace, although it's not easy, it's one of the highest characteristics you can have. But when you always center yourself with peace, this allows the intuition of wisdom, and this allows the mental clarity to flow through you so that you can solve the problem. You see, so that's just one aspect of what the teachings has brought me, is that centeredness that I was seeking 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. I love that. That sounds really dope. I'd love to know what's up with you changing your name and stuff. Can you give us some like info on that,
For sure.
how that
Sure,
works,
I'm seeing the
what that
comments now.
means.
I'm just like, oh, God, everybody.
Yeah,
What's
everybody's
going
in
on?
here
Peace.
now.
So my name change. The name change I did, was that this year? I think that was this year. Yeah. Back in February. And the name change was the learning that from a traditional African perspective, our names were given to us to help us stay aligned with our destiny. Okay, that's the purpose of a name. Right now, in Western culture, we have names. Our parents love us. They want to give us a beautiful name. They love us, you know. And it's all in good faith, you
Definitely.
know. Like, you know, people love their children, of course, and they want to give us the names that they best feel will just be out of love, right? Whereas from the traditional
Yeah.
African perspective, yes, your name is given to you because your parents love you, but your name is also through wise counseling and through the understanding of the elders who have exemplified that they are able to communicate with God effectively and consistently. Your name is is
Mm-hmm.
essentially given by God, and it helps you stay aligned with who you are. So my name, Hefen Tepra, translates to I am humbled and nurtured by the oracle. And when I say oracle, essentially we're talking about God, because in the Kemetic system, the oracle is your medium. It is the mode in which you are able to communicate with the divine. Okay, all well, yeah. Oh, I was gonna say, in traditional African cultures, they use what are called oracles, divination systems, to be able to communicate with God. It's a science. Okay. Now, I didn't do this. I didn't
Right.
do the reading myself to get the oracle because I'm so used to it. I'm so new to it. But I went to an elder in the society who was able to give that name for me. And what's interesting about my name, I am humbled and nurtured by God, is that when it said my entire life up until this point, nurturing was something that I was lacking, right? Emotional pouring into. And so I'm like,
Okay.
oh, and then it's like humble, in the spiritual community, in the conscious community, we're like, I ain't trying to be humble. Like that humble word. Have you looked into the etymology of humble? Do you know the definition of humble? Who's trying to humble us? What's with this humble word? Like, forget this humble word. Like we're gods. What are you talking about? Like, we're gods and goddesses. Trying
Yeah.
to humble us? Like, nah, fam. Nobody's getting humbled
Feel
around
that.
here. So, so I'm like, I got my name. I'm like humbled, and come to find out, um, when I really took the time to self-access, I was like, wow. Oftentimes, I show excessive pride, and this has gotten me into unnecessary
Mm.
situations. And what's interesting is I have a tattoo that says,
Mm.
"Pride must die in you, or nothing of heaven can live in you." And I got that tattoo 7 years ago. So I'm like, I know,
Wow.
I
Oh
know
my
that I've lacked
goodness.
nurturing, hence escapism, right? And then when I
Mm-hmm.
got kicked out of college, the tattoo I got said that I need to work on my pride, right? So, so it's
Yeah.
interesting that someone that I've never met, that I don't know, when they gave me the name, which from my understanding, they did the reading to speak to God to give me the name. Essentially, the Most High said, part of your destiny, what will help you live out your destiny, is to focus on humbleness and to focus on nurturing yourself through living out the teachings, through cultivating your spirituality. Right. And everybody's destiny is different. Everybody has.
That's a major destiny, though. I
It's
mean,
different. It's different from
that's a
everyone.
lot.
And here's the crazy part, right? Think about how many men, right, particularly black men, right? Maybe they don't know their destiny, right? And this is me, right? And instead of looking for the practices and the understanding of cultivating their spirit and that oneness with God to nurture themselves, which is my destiny, right? The
Yeah.
name says that you becoming one and living a spiritual life, that is the only thing that will nurture you in this lifetime. if without me knowing that, I could have used having children, my future wife. I could have used, you know, certain substances or foods or experiences, but how would I?
Anything
Everything
external,
external.
anything
But how could
external,
I have possibly
basically.
known that cultivating my spirit would have been the only thing to nurture me? You see? So yeah, the destiny is pretty. It aligns you. It aligns you. Sure.
Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
that's amazing. Um, yeah, that's dope. What, like, how did you know who to go to for a name? Did you get like, initiated into something? I've heard about people needing to be initiated before they can practice these.
Yes,
I mean, can
of
you
course.
speak to
So
that whole thing?
with Raul Nefer Amin's teachings, they his between his book series, um, his book series allows you to self-initiate. All right. Very taboo. Typically you have to go somewhere, be a part of a tribe, be
Is that safe though? Is it
it's
safe to
it's
self-initiate? I
self-protecting,
mean, like,
meaning if it's for you, it's
okay,
for you. Right? Because
okay,
hey,
sure.
yo, people got bills to pay. People trying to go on vacation. Folks are doing anything and everything. Who is sitting down trying to self-initiate? It's
Okay, fair. That's fair.
if
That's
if it's
fair.
meant for
Yeah,
you,
that makes
it's meant
sense.
for you type of thing.
Yeah,
The teachings protect
yeah.
themselves, right? What they offer now is called the Ma'at 11 Laws of God, Health, Wealth, and Success, and it's a course that it doesn't quite take you through the same depth of like really going through the initiation system, but what the course does offer is a set of meditations and the principles, so that you got your principles, you have the meditation, and you do your daily meditation or your weekly meditation, and you start to be able to experience these manifestations, because you manifest, like people in the spirit,
Sure.
folks
Yeah,
manifest. But what the 11 laws of Ma'at success
yeah.
course, what it is it maximizes your manifestation potential, okay, in a way in which is more
Okay.
aligned with righteous principles, because we can manifest things that may not be good for us, right? We can, you like, dang,
Yeah.
like, did I bring
Very
this to
true.
me? Like, did I bring, like, yeah, you did, right?
Yeah.
um,
Facts.
I do be like that,
Yeah, it'd
right?
be
You be like,
like that.
oh, I got the power of, oh yeah, like I'm the universe having a human experience. I can bring things to me. Money's coming to me. You be like, wait a second. Now I'm bringing problems to me as well. I'm literally bringing these problems to me.
Yeah.
So that course is through the link in my bio. I think it's more practical. It's more simplistic, and you can still get a great amount of benefit out of it. Yeah.
So basically, this course is like a dumbed down, simplified version of like what you need to do without being affiliated with
Correct.
like
You don't necessarily have to be part of your
tribe.
society. You don't have to get a name change. You don't have to know your destiny reading. You don't have to do any of that. And you can start learning.
Those are
You might
interesting
want to
things
look
that I
into
might
it.
want to look into though. Like, how does one find someone that's a
I
resource for
was
that?
in
You know?
I was in Jersey at the time, so I was next to their Philadelphia Osset Society location. There's different locations
Okay.
across the nation. They're international, so it depends on where you're at to go somewhere physically. Now, online, you can call and email one of the local society next to you. Okay, so depending on where you're at, if you look up Osera Set Societies, you can look up Atlanta, Chicago, DC, Philly, New Orleans, I think Minnesota. So there's different ones across. Okay, and then you can call that one and or email and say, hey, I'm looking for a name change, a destiny reading, and I'm pretty sure it's like a small fee. And they will probably they will probably, I'm pretty sure they would do it for you, right? Even if you don't do anything further, right? You just know your name or you know your destiny reading.
Mhm.
You could at least get the book and you can learn the rest for yourself, right? So yeah, you have to reach out for sure. Hmm.
Okay, that's very interesting. Wow. So the Auxerre and Offset Society, what is that exactly? That's just
Yes,
like an organization
correct. That's
dedicated to
right.
this
Go ahead. My bad. Go
work.
ahead.
I was just saying, is that just like an organization that, studies the same thing that we're talking about, or like I've never
Me
heard of
neither
them. So,
until this. Like you have like the conscious community, the spiritual community, but
hmm
the OSER or OSAR, OSER, OSET, Pan African International Organization. Okay, it's a community built by
hmm.
Ra'u Nefer Amen, Shechem or Shechem.
Okay.
This is the Kemetic priest and practitioner who wrote the Metanetter Volume 1 through 7 series. He produced a lot of other books. And instead of just producing books, he also built a community and an organization of African Americans and people of the African diaspora who came together to embody these teachings as a community, right? And so, as you may know, I know of one community in Georgia, you know, that did do that for a while, right? They're called the Nuwapians, right? And right, and
Oh,
it's very rare. Okay, and here's the thing when it comes to particularly people of the African American diaspora here in America trying to unite, right? We know the history of this country that sometimes when we come together, it's always something. You know what I'm saying? It's always something.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, where
Right.
is the community or where is the group of us that came together, you know, rainbows and sunshines, peace and
Right.
love,
It's
right?
peace and love. Peace and love.
Right.
It's simple.
And it's like, where is that? Even amongst our community, right? And
Yeah.
what I found was the Osiris Society is one of those communities that they were able to do that, right? They were able to come together, work together, create marriages, create families. I mean, it's an international organization, and I think the reason that it's not well known is because they don't advertise, right? They don't. Just recently, you find Ra'u Nefer Amen on YouTube, right? They have a media section, but
Mhm.
that just came out a couple months ago. But in reality, they did everything word of mouth pretty much, right? There wasn't like a promotion. You
Yeah.
had to like you had to be drawn to it
Right.
somehow, you know? And so and another reason why I feel like people haven't really heard about it is it's very African, okay? Very African. One thing about spirituality as we understand it, um, it's the way that a lot of us understand it in the West. It's not the way that our traditional, um, our ancestors did it traditionally. So I think that
Yeah. Mhm.
energetically, psychically, if you're involved in spirituality in a way in which your ancestors, it depends like your lineage, your bloodline. Like if your ancestors didn't really do it that way, you may not be aware of the opportunity of people doing it the way that your ancestors are doing it. You see? Um, and so in that way, some of
Mm.
these religions, they work as a psychic spiritual lock that prevent us from manifesting practices and knowledge and essentially creating cognitive dissonance from seeing, coming across, synchronizing our way to our ancestors' teachings. You see? Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um, so here's what I want to kind of segue into because I guess I kind of want to touch on this first since we're talking about ancestors first. Ancestry, I feel like it's really tough for,
Mm-hmm.
people like us to figure out what really is our ancestry. I mean, I went to school and was told that my ancestors
Mm-hmm.
came from Africa, you know, through the slave trade. But my family tells me that, we have Native American,
Mm-hmm.
pretty heavy Native American blood. What is your understanding of like Native Americans, ancient Africans? Like, are they somehow related? Are they two separate groups of people? Did
Mm-hmm.
they migrate? Like, are we,
Right.
I mean, I guess
Gotcha.
it depends, everyone's ancestry is going to be slightly different, but what is your understanding
My
of
and
that?
I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm proficient in this very complex aspect of history. My understanding is that we are original to Africa, but we were the first to America. Okay, and what that means is, um, I adhere to the standard migration patterns of human beings, right? But what we weren't taught in school is that Africans migrated to North America long before Columbus had even came, right? But it is to my understanding
Mm-hmm.
that there was African influence, especially in South America with the Olmecs, right? But from the when it comes to like the
Mm-hmm.
Native American thing, like there were still what we would consider a Mongolian migration that happened from the Bering Strait, and so there's
Sure.
this almost admixture of Africans who were here earlier, Mongolians who came later, and the descendants of the Mongolians being the Native Americans, right? So when people say that they're indigenous to America,
Okay.
I think they're talking about a time period way back and not the erasure of the Native American Mongolians who did come around. So it's like truth mixed with lies, right? And it gets very complex,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, oh, you're right, but you're partially right, but then partially wrong. Here's the I think the practicality of it, right? As far as identification, okay? Because I was told that we have Native Americans in
Okay.
my family. My great grandma, or my great great grandma on my paternal side, right? So I was like, got Native American in my family, got ties to this land. But what I started to
Mm-hmm.
realize was what use case and what practices, what cultural norms, what customs, and what traditions would we bring back as Native Americans, right? What does it mean to be Native American, right? And one thing that came to light was, while I think that I think it's true that Africans had a presence here, right? That that presence is too far disconnected for us to rebuild on as a culture. Marriage traditions,
Mm.
maybe birthing traditions, how we communicate. What is our culture? What is our tradition? Right now, if you ask me, we're going through a cultural, religious, and spiritual renaissance. Things are deconstructing from what they were, and people are finding, re-identifying, and rebuilding. Okay. So I think it's a
Sure.
beautiful thing if you find someone in your lineage and your ancestors to be Native American. But what is the reality of the practices and the principles that you're going to teach your children? Right. And typically when people are trying to find these things, a lot of times we find them in books, elders, other scholars who have done the work, right? And so I think the reality is, while a lot, I don't know if it's a lot. To me personally, most of us came over here on the transatlantic slave trade. That's my paradigm, right? Um, Most of us came over in the transatlantic slave trade, and yet at the same time there was an African presence prior to Columbus, right? But it's not. It was way further back in history, right? Yeah.
Like, like when all of the continents were
Supposedly,
together, supposedly. Like, do you think that's
no.
how they got over
I think
to
they actually
America? You
sailed
know what I
over.
mean?
I think they sailed. I believe
Okay.
they sailed over, and there's a stream going from West Africa to Central America. I forgot what it's called. You can look it up, but it's a flow of water, like three streams that across the Atlantic Ocean, it just streams and it flows from West Africa to Central Africa. And I believe that because I'm still learning about the African influence in South America and North America. And if you ask people who say they're indigenous, they say we have, some of them say we have no African, right? Some of them say we have no African ties whatsoever. We're not African, right? I say, first of all, I'm learning that there was black people in America before Columbus, right? And that they were African. And when it comes to the whole Pangea thing, I'm going, I don't adhere to Pangea, right? And here's why. Because from what I understand, Pangea existed approximately 200 to 500 million years ago.
Okay. So long as time ago.
and from, because here's the thing, some things I go deep into, some things I'm surface level on. I'm balancing my research, right? The earliest evidence that I'm comfortable admitting that humans existed, Homo sapiens sapiens, is anywhere between 200,000 to 500,000 years ago. Okay, Homo sapiens sapiens. There's a lot of different conspiracies. There's a lot of different paradigms. There's a lot of different perspectives. Okay. At one point, I thought, here's like, let me say, I'll be honest with you. At one point, I thought we were giants. At one point, okay, I thought we descended from giants. I'm not gonna cap. All right, I've been down a lot of rabbit holes. But what these rabbit holes reveal to me is, what is the use case? What is the practicality? What can you do with this information, right? How will this information change your life? And what I started to realize was the Pangea, we were giants, we were dragons, we were genetically engineered, we were in an Anunnaki bloodline. I started to realize something. You know, a lot of these weren't helping me pay my bills.
Dang. I swear I've said some shit like that before. Like, okay, this is all really great, but like,
Yeah,
what are we about to do? You know? Definitely.
A lot of these won't happen in my bill. And like King of Ankh said, I do think that there was a spreading of the information, a migration of our people, African people. Like at one, and I'm trying to learn more about it, but I want to stick to research that keeps things very, very scholarly, academic, because there are Black and brown African people who are doing the research, but it takes time to come to these conclusions. I don't adhere to Pangea that it was all one landmass, because it was so far long ago. I haven't found any research to say that we existed at that time. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that makes
but yeah, I claim we're all Africans of a recent transatlantic Holocaust, right? Transatlantic slave or transatlantic slave Holocaust. Because apparently calling it a trade is a wrong term, because a trade is a noble thing to do. So it really wasn't a trade; it was a Holocaust. But yeah, that's like a new terminology that makes sense.
hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. Well, the only reason why I ask is because I mean it's kind of confusing, like I said, going to school, learning one thing, hearing from your family something else, and
Right.
it's like you don't know how to connect the dots. I also think it's interesting, and I'm just going to mention this and then I'm going to move on to the next thing I wanted to talk about. But my family, like, I remember growing up being told we have this Native American ancestry. Like, my grandma telling me that her grandfather was like a full blooded Indian, and I have this ancestry on both my dad and my mom's side. Like, we know that we have Cherokee and we have Blackfoot, heritage or whatever. But it's like that's as far as they want to go with it. You know what I mean? They don't want to talk about or go into what that means. Like, were these people doing? What does that mean for us? Why do we not
Right.
take it any further than that?
Right.
You know, it's just like, what is that?
Exactly. So it's like typically we understand our history and our tradition so we can continue it.
But it's almost like my family wants to completely repel like where they came from, like to an extent where, you know, my whole family for
Mm-hmm.
now is like Christian. So I grew up
Mm-hmm.
Christian. I went to a Christian school for a while, and anything that's not like in the Bible, it's of the devil. Like literally, that's how it went for me. I wasn't allowed to watch Harry
Ooh.
Potter growing up. Like I wasn't allowed to celebrate Halloween.
Right.
All of that is of the devil. Even even the stuff about even things that Native Americans do, you know, sage, burning sage, dream catchers, tapestries with just basic things like the moon and the sun. These are all like
Where
these
you
are all
from?
problematic for
Where
people in my
you from?
family. You said what?
Okay.
I'm from
Okay.
Columbus, Ohio.
Mm.
Yeah. But it's like they're very they're just very, I don't even know what the word is, very offended by anything that goes against what is in the
Mm.
Bible, literally. Like, so that was a weird thing for me growing up, you know, because it was like I don't really know where we came from exactly, what that means to me, and on top of that, I'm not encouraged to figure that out, to, you know, search or explore. It's just
Right.
like this is where you need to be at, like
Right.
in this box, you know? Anything outside of this box, like we're judging you. It's not okay. We're not down for
Right.
that. You
Right.
gotta get rid of it. You know? So that's kind of how my life went. It was an interesting
Yeah.
time. But I would like to talk about just because I feel like, you know, winter is approaching, and I feel like it's the ideal time to really get down to brass tacks and try to cleanse and realign
Mm.
and get ready for the new year. So the reason why I really wanted to bring you on here was because um, I was hoping, you know, I could get some gems out of you, something that's inspiring because um, last year I feel like a lot of things that I heard from you and a lot of people like on Clubhouse and stuff was really monumental for me. I was learning about a lot of stuff and listening to a lot of people last year, but I was going through a lot of things, and the spiritual walk was kind of like what kept me anchored while I was going through a lot of mental and
Mm.
like emotional
Mm.
challenges and things like that. But breath, breath work, how simple it sounds, but how powerful it is. How is the vehicle to meditation? Your book, I love your book. I bought
Appreciate
your
that.
audiobook and stuff like that. Tell us a little bit
Oh, you
about
should tell us about. Okay, yeah, and appreciate you buying the book. Yeah, you know, with the upcoming winter solstice, as it is called, December 21st through December 25th, it is the most optimal time of the year to prepare to manifest our new desires. All right, that's really like, I mean, with the winter time, there's less solar energy, so psychic phenomena is higher, literally. It's kind of like, yeah, it's like radio signal.
it. Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
it's like, okay, so
Okay.
if you're in the summer, you know how your radio, your cell phone can overheat and the signal can kind of be messed up. Um, Same thing works with
Definitely.
our ability to perceive certain information or be able to receive downloads. The fact that we are further away from the sun, globe Earth team all day. That the psychic energy is going to be more clear, right? And so it's the best time for downloads when you are, really meditation right before bed is most ideal. No food, no solid food for probably about at least 2 to 3 hours for the best effects of meditation. So if you want to optimize your ability to receive information that will help you solve your day-to-day problems, deal with your day-to-day stresses, 3 hours before meditation, no food, and then meditation right before bed, right? So already we have a ritual, we have a schedule, a routine, right? Depending on what we got going on that can help us deal with the problems that we have to do. Um, I'm going to be working on, I am working on another book for a different type of meditation. One that we've learned recently is called the Zazen meditation. Um, because with Raul Nefer
Okay.
Ahmed's teachings, like, people can go to his teachings and find his teachings if they're meant to find them. But what I'm doing is I'm working as a medium that when people listen to me, they can hear and learn about some of his teachings because they're very powerful and they're effective. So one that I know I was doing recently is the Zazen meditation, which is different than the one I talked about in my book. This one helps us
Mm-hmm.
with our. This one is for more of a waking meditation. Like you do this meditation and then you get into your homework, you get into your business, you get into your content creation, and perhaps you. And as a matter of fact, you probably do it first thing in the rising. Okay, so you do this, you wake up, you do this, and it's almost, but not really, like being high. Like seriously, I was doing it, so
I believe it.
so
I
there's
do.
different types of meditations for different effects, right? And certainly the most powerful thing we can do is that 3 hour to 4 hour window before bed of no eating and meditating. Taking our ideas, our desires, clearing our mind, focusing on an objective right before bed, right? So that's one type of meditation where you're like, okay, I'm programming myself and I'm focusing on my objective or whatever I got going on right before bed, taking it into sleep, right? We gotta look at whether you call it astral travels, nocturnal abundance, but bedtime is download time, right? What we take to sleep.
Yeah.
I started noticing recently, for the first time ever, some of the dreams I was having, I was embodying um, I was like living a life where was aligned with my destiny. Like I'm out here teaching spiritual philosophy. People are asking me questions. I'm on stage. Whereas sometimes dreams could be about anything and everything, right? Dreams could, I'm flying, I'm doing all
Right.
types.
Hey, peace, wholeness. I'm not sure what happened. I think
Yeah, I
maybe
don't know what's going.
Instagram just, doing its
I don't
thing.
know. I was watching the replay too. I don't know if it's like a lag or a delay. Like if you hear me and you hear me right away or not, I don't know. It's whatever.
It's probably still trying
Yeah,
to load, honestly, But we were in the middle of talking about breath work, and you were mentioning like a different type of breath
correct,
work, I
correct.
believe that's
Yes,
what we
the
left off.
Zazen meditation, which I feel bad for not even having the at least a book or an audio version ready to sell and get to you guys. But you can get to the Zazen if you go to the kemeticlegacy.com. It probably just gonna, you can go through them and get it. I always I link a lot of his teachings and being able to tap into them through there. It's just that I know that people may not like go through the whole program. They might not want to do all that, so they just stop
Sure.
at my bus stop. You know what I'm saying? So I'm pretty sure you can learn about the Zazen online, but what we have through the course is like a recording, and you listen to the recording. That's what I do because the recording tells you exactly how to do the Zazen, and it goes for about 30 minutes, but you can do it for about 15 if you wanted to. But I'm going to recreate it in my own way and be able to teach others that because
Sure.
again, the way that you access the Zazen that that he's produced is through the 11 Laws of Ma'at course. Um, and again, people may not be interested in the course. They may just want they may just want that specific zazen. So I'm sure you can probably look up how to do a zazen meditation online. I'm sure, right? Already with my audiobook and ebook, I teach those fundamentals of breathing. You know, the lock of the root chakra, the breathing into the belly, those type of things. So you follow a lot of those same uh, parameters when it comes to it. It's just with the zazen, it's a lot slower too. It's like 4.5 breaths a minute. 4.5. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, right.
I felt like, okay, how fast or slow is the breath work technique that you're
The,
doing in
the
your audiobook?
audio.
Because I felt like you weren't really even breathing that slow, to be honest. I felt like I was breathing slower than you were, but I don't know if you were just
It
doing
was
that,
more probably
for
for
the
the book.
book.
It was probably more for the book. Like as time goes on, I know that basically gradually getting slower at breathing is ideal, right? As time goes on. But
Right.
there's certain milestones, breathing 7.5 breaths per minute, breathing, then it's like 4.5 breaths per minute, and then it's 3, and then it's 1. But let's just keep things realistic. Like most people probably right.
That's
Like
crazy.
realistically, most people are going to probably stop at that 4.5 breaths per minute, right? And the reason why 4.5 is such an important number is because our spirit has a certain vibe, like it vibrates, it harmonizes at certain frequencies. So 4.5 breaths per minute is a frequency, okay? You can
Mhm.
stabilize your spirit, your psyche, your mind at 4.5, right? But you may not be as stable at 4 breaths per minute or at 5, right? So when you do 4.5, you come out of the meditation, you're like you're like at a certain frequency that is considered stable. You see, so if you like, when you go a
Mhm.
little bit short, you go a little bit over, it's fine, right? But ideally, like those, I think I put it in the audiobook. I thought I put the 1 breath per minute, 3 breaths per minute, 4.5. Maybe I didn't. I know. Yeah,
I think you
yeah.
did break
So
it down
yeah, not I.
briefly.
And as you see, it's a short book. That's just more like quick application manual. Get to it. Like I know I want to write more books in the future too, because
Yeah, are you enjoying like creating stuff like
yeah,
that
like
versus
like
books
right
and
now,
things?
I'm just cultivating my energy to get used to a lifestyle of creativity, right? Like I spent so much time draining my energy. I'm like now I have to build up and recondition myself to be a create. I want to just create. I don't care books, art, courses,
I feel that.
content, lifestyles, but it takes a lot of energy to do that. I'm
It
sure.
does. It really
Yeah, I'm sure
does.
you
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, it really does actually. Yeah, I never really thought about it until I started being an actual content creator, how much energy it takes to constantly
Right.
create things. But I mean, it's so fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really rewarding, and
Right.
fulfilling, and it
Exactly.
just feels right? It just feels like
Ex-
the right thing to do. But to
mhm.
kind of like backtrack a little bit, because I know we were talking about this specific type of breath work. Um, I think what people need to realize, people that are starting out, the most important part, people who want to get into meditation and don't know how, don't know where to start, what's important, how to quiet their mind. It's like, for me personally, this is my personal perspective on it. Before I knew about breath work and what that meant, I just heard people say when you meditate, you're supposed to focus on your breath. But it was like that's
Right.
all that I really knew. Like I didn't
Right.
really know the depth of what that actually meant, how that was supposed to actually carry me into the
Right.
meditative state. Like could you kind of maybe break that down just briefly for people, so that it's at least recorded here, people can understand the importance of breath work
Gotcha.
in
Yeah. So when it
meditation?
comes to meditation, first of all, in 2023, who wants to sit in complete silence? Who sits in complete silence and stillness for just the sake of doing it? Nobody, right? Uh, a lot of us are always doing something, scrolling, eating, shopping, traveling, talking. I mean, sitting in stillness, it's like, how do I focus? Right? And that's where
Right.
it starts. The wisdom that focusing on the breath helps you to do the meditation, puts you into a meditative state. Okay. And I guess what they mean by focus on the breath is to focus on the breath technique, right? Because as I broke down in the book, um, it is definitely a technique to it. And even if you go and venture out and learn other techniques, right? That when you want to when you want to be able to meditate and do it well, focusing on your technique, like the smoothness of the breath. Like, for example, when you're doing meditation, you ideally don't want to hear anything. No, you don't hear any wind, any pushing of air, any sucking in of air. It's very quiet, right? And for it to be very quiet, you have to do it kind of like smoothly, you see, and that takes practice. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that one can focus on with increasing their meditation technique, that when they focus on it being smooth and not making a whole lot of sound, your mind is focused on the practice and you're not like just inhaling, exhaling, and having all these thoughts coming and going, coming and going. They can come and go anyway, right? While you're doing this technique, right? But
Right.
at least when you're doing the
Right.
technique, you're focused on something rather than nothing, right?
Exactly. It like gives your conscious mind, that's at the forefront usually.
Right.
It gives it something to do. You know what I mean? So that your subconscious can kind
Exactly.
of open up. That's kind of how I like perceive
Mm-hmm.
meditation
Mm-hmm.
to kind of go, at
Exactly.
least in my
Yeah. No. And
experience.
yeah, it's and then the more that you practice, the slower that you go, and the easier it is to calm the mind in the meditation or in the emotions. Excuse me. Yes, like that's for sure an experience. I know with Zazen on the opposite side, when I do Zazen, it's actually like my mind becomes more awake and I venture off into whatever imaginative states or thinking about something. I just feel like my intelligence increases when I do Zazen, like, for real. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, people can
Interesting.
access it, right? You can go to the link in my bio um, and look through the kemeticlegacy.com website, and I'm sure it will be there as part of one of the courses. They have like 4 different courses. So, um, and you download the Soundwise app and you can be able to access it, right? But until then, um,
Mm-hmm.
my community or your community will have to wait till I get that book out. Again, like I said, you can also probably teach yourself online, research it. You know?
Well, you know what? I'll probably end up purchasing your course. I feel like I'll definitely be curious enough to buy it. I did enjoy your audiobook, so I would definitely like to support
Appreciate it.
you. But I don't want to take up too much of your time. I do want to ask you, like, if you could just share a story with us, like maybe of like an interesting experience that happened to you while you were meditating. Maybe you've experienced some sort of supernatural things. We would love to hear
Out of the
something,
ordinary,
out of the
sure.
ordinary.
Hmm. There's a couple. There's a couple. I'm trying to think. Synchronicities. Because the synchronicities are one thing, you know, and sometimes they're so back to back, I'm just like, yo, like, am I dreaming? Am I like, what? Why is there's just so many psychic experiences going on?
Yeah.
Hmm. I
Like, have you ever been like in a meditative state and like had like a weird out of body experience or like seen something or I mean, I don't know,
honestly,
it could be
the
anything
most
really,
out of
but
body experiences I had was would be when I was sleeping at night. It would have been, and that this happened like a while ago, twice within the last couple years. It's been, I think, 2021, twice within 2021. I thought I was dreaming, but it was more like an astral experience. Like you're awake while you're asleep, but you can feel air moving through your body, right? And if your body's like really like
hmm.
luminescence, like a light
Okay.
body, right?
Uh-huh.
And I was in a rush
Yeah.
to get back to an astral experience, but now I'm not. I'm more focused on being consistent with the practices, right? Because it's really not all about astral projection like a lot of people think it is. That's just a byproduct, right? But what I will say is that happened recently during my 5 day dry fast is doing the meditation, which I don't recommend. Okay, I don't recommend. That's just me, right? That's me and my taking things to the extreme.
What brought you to
Um,
do that?
Wanting to reach a new level of testing my discipline, right? I wanted to see how disciplined could I be, right? Which, come to find out, again, that's not
Okay.
necessary to try to like cleanse the body. Is dry fasting. You can water fast, you can juice fast, you can detox, different things. But one thing that I experienced during the dry fast is that the with the meditation, the zazen in conjunction with the dry fast, like how we're sitting here having this conversation, right? When you don't necessarily have to dry fast, right? You could just be eating clean, right? And you can do the zazen, and you're still going to experience. But I just experienced it to a higher degree because I was fasting. I was more sensitive. One thing I realized is
Hmm.
I had the download or the realization of it's called Pert Emheru, which translates to coming forth by day. Okay, and coming. Have you heard of coming forth by day? Yeah. Okay, so
I have the book.
I've heard of Pert Emheru. I've heard of coming forth by day. The Arab grave robbers call it the Book of the Dead, right?
Yeah.
But what I
Yeah, I have the book of
realized
the dead.
was what they meant, and then Ronald Ephraim talks about this in Volume One. That what coming forth by day means is the the initiates and the people who reached enlightenment through consistent application of the meditations, the qigongs, the yogas, the wisdom, and through learning the lessons of day-to-day life, overcoming adversities, constantly choosing truth, is that it requires a level of oxygenization of the body to experience enlightenment, right? So if you wake up tomorrow, when you wake up tomorrow and you wake up, the first thing you do is you oxygenate your body for 30 minutes, right? I don't know if you've ever heard of hyperbolic oxygen therapy, right? Hyperbaric. Yeah, they have this new thing where you go
Okay.
to an oxygen tank and you do it. You do this for 2 hours a day,
Mhm.
12 weeks in a row, 6 weeks in a row. Okay, it's called hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And I'm like, these mofos, they've literally replaced or tried to replace meditation because all meditation is oxygenating the body, right? Okay, maybe you're like an
Yeah.
elder or something and
Hmm.
you can't meditate, so that's good for you. Cool. But it costs like $20,000 to do that, right? Nobody's doing that. But the effects of the hyperbaric
Right.
oxygen therapy is that it grows your telomeres, right? And your telomeres are the caps at the end of your DNA that unwind as you get older. So basically, after I did a testimony, and the Harvard doctor gave him the results that your DNA strands lengthen, and you were able to reverse your age by doing the oxygen therapy for 12 years. So when we meditate consistently and we do it properly by being able to bring in lots of air to that lower diaphragm and squeeze it on the vagus nerve, and we do this daily, we are reversing our age, right? And that has the healing effect on the body. And what I experienced when I was doing this zazen every day, what I experienced was a higher wakefulness. I was like, okay, me and you are awake right now, right? But if we both did the zazen, we would be more awake, right? And it's like that's why I said it's kind of like being high, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm higher in consciousness and perception than where we're at now.
Yeah.
Energy drink doesn't quite do it. Weed is not quite the same. There's nothing that does this other than oxygen, literally. And people have likened it similar to a psychedelic trip, but not quite the same. I don't know why I'm getting ringing in my ear, in my right ear. You get ringings in your ear?
Interesting.
Messages.
Sometimes. Yeah. Every blue moon, and it'll just like stop me in my tracks too, and I'm just like,
What's going on? Yeah.
Like it always feels very I don't know, like
But my overall conclusion with that dry fast and doing all that meditation, I felt less human, like for real. Meaning, I was so like elevated because I had all this oxygen in my system. I felt very like the only emotion that I could easily express was peace and joy. Like I would laugh and I would just smile. But as far as anger, frustration, sadness, depression, anxiety, nah, nothing. So when I say less human, I'm just like I'm just walking around, and it's just like, wow, I'm so awake, I'm so alive. You know what I'm saying? And so the out of body aspect of it, yes, that's a thing. But being in my body, but being more aware, is another paradigm that also exists. And even to the point where when I came back, I walked around, came back inside, I started reading a book. My ability to read and process information was the fastest it ever was. So I was able to like line, reading. Like it was going so fast. And I'm like, yo, this is what they mean by like us tapping into that super type of human ability, is that
it was like you were using more than a fraction of your brain capacity.
And it took work. It took work. It wasn't the first day of Zazen. It wasn't the second day of Zazen. It was just, or if you're just doing whatever breathing you're doing daily, right? But it does have to be you have to do it. The technique does have to oxygenate the body more by stimulating the vagus nerve. So I'm pretty sure, I don't think the one that I teach in the book, it doesn't do it the way that the Zazen does it. Right. So I would have to, again, get that out. But again, this technique is excellent for coming forth by day, becoming more awake. And that's what coming forth by day means. It means coming forth, going into by day, the light, going into the light, enlightenment, coming forth by day. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Through more oxygen. Yeah.
Very. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, I love that. Honestly, I have the book, Book of the Dead. It's pretty. Exactly. It's kind of hard to read, but
if you read it from the perspective that you are God having a human experience, because it talks about Osiris Osiris Ani, the scribe. Notice how in the beginning it says, Osiris Ani, the scribe, right? So it's saying that the scribe is an accountant. Ani is the name of the scribe, and he's calling himself Osiris, who is a god. So in the first line of this religious text, a scribe is saying, I am Osir, I am Osiris, right? And then he goes on to explain who he is through different gods, right? He might say, I come as I can't even say it, Kefre, the, 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 the god of transmutation of associated with the beetle, right? The recycling of life, energy, matter. But just, I would say, read it from the perspective that you are a conscious being, you know, the likeness of God, and you can come in many different forms. You can come in the form of Ra, you can come in the form of Ma'at, and you are just expressing the different aspects of God's existence, but you're doing it in a poetic way, right? So it's very much like a omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent being writing about itself. So again, so yeah, very difficult. You know, the teachings and the application of the knowledge is the only way I've been able to better decode that text, for sure. Because otherwise, you see, nobody talks about it.
Right. Yeah. No one talks about that book. Honestly, it's kind of
People
taboo,
talk
I
about
feel like.
anything and everything, but when it comes to Book of the Dead,
Yes.
like everybody's just
That's so
like,
true.
we all collectively agree we don't understand.
Hey, but there's also, isn't there a Tibetan Book
Yeah,
of the Dead also, right? Are
I
they somehow,
I
I don't
haven't
know,
looked into the
related?
Tibetan
Do you
Book of
know?
the Dead, but I would assume the fact that they
Me
call it the
neither. Of
Book of the Dead is like the opposite. It's the book of really probably the awake, the enlightened.
course. Yeah. I mean, the
Right,
Tibetan monks,
right. Yeah, of
they're up to
course,
something. Up to
for
something.
sure. I can tell you, but I can tell you, you know what this really is though. I can like, um, and I know you want to wrap things up. That this is a total lifestyle change. You know, it's very difficult to see yourself really transform without serious work, right? So I'm like, yo, like some people are,
Yeah.
they're in meditation an hour a day, hour and a half a day, yoga hour a day, qigong hour a day, and it's like, okay, well, if you're doing it for an hour a day, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, after 3 years, yeah, you're gonna be a different being. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
definitely expect, definitely consider
Yeah.
that it's different paradigms that people are living because of the consistent application, right? And you're here where you're at now because of the work that you put in. You see, so right. Shit, what's going
Definitely.
on, cuz?
Definitely. That's crazy to even think about. I still think
Mm-hmm.
about that now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think? Okay, last question. I'm sorry. What do you think? Because me personally, I like to meditate
Mm-hmm.
slightly high, like I feel like being high kind of helps open up and elevate like my experience, especially with breath work. I can recall, times when I was practicing breath work, after taking like a couple hits
Mm-hmm.
like of a vape or something or whatever it is, and just feeling like so, I don't know even what the word is, just like, at peace and just like unraveling infinitely, but like in a weird way that I've never experienced before, if that even makes sense. Like just, um, I just feel like, cannabis opens up
Mm-hmm.
your energy centers to a degree. So, I felt like it was amplifying
Mm-hmm.
my results. What do you think about that?
I'm gonna say first what Yaki said in his interview on damn, I forgot what it's called. Forgot what the interview is called. But basically, when it comes to cannabis, eating it is better, right, for the body, of course, right?
Of course. Of
And
course.
what I haven't read his book yet, but I read a little bit, and he wrote a book about about cannabis and its effects on the brain.
Uh-huh.
He says that, and I'm not gonna say he says. He brought forward research and talked about research that says it destroys the frontal lobe, right? And
Okay.
that's why, you know, I don't plan on smoking anymore. I don't plan on doing it anymore. But those that do, right? Because I feel like it works as a medium for you. We used to do things one way, and it helps us be able to transition. Basically, it helps us to be able to let go and um, maybe not rely on other things or other expressions that could be worse than the cannabis. But I don't feel like cannabis. I don't. I don't think cannabis does what the body could do. I don't think cannabis is better than what the body could do sober, right? And when it comes to
True.
meditation,
If your body is aligned
true,
and
true.
like healthy,
That's
you
true. And
know,
see, that's
like
where I don't try to like. If that's a big if, that's a big if, right? Some people need cannabis, literally.
because in I don't really know, you know, who you're talking about, what he researched and things like that, but I know there's
Yeah,
parts of cannabis that are
right,
good, you know, that do
right.
good work for the body. And I just wonder if maybe there's, you know, I'm sure there's certain cannabinoids. I don't know if it's the
Mm-hmm.
cannabinoids, like maybe it's THC that destroys
Mm-hmm.
the frontal lobe. Maybe it's THC. Maybe it's
Right.
our favorite cannabinoid of all. You know, it
Yeah.
probably is. That's usually how it works, you know. But, you know,
Right.
CBD is
CBD.
non-psychoactive. It's very
Yeah.
therapeutic for the body.
Right.
And it does great work for people that, you know, experience lots of chronic
Exactly.
pains, discomfort, seizures.
Yeah.
Helps, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
so many things that cannabis is good for. Um, and I just wonder, you know, is it supposed to be used to help elevate you, like in these practices and things? That's kind of where
Okay.
I want to go
Yeah.
with my cannabis use because I already don't really
Okay.
consume that heavily. I mean, I know I'm a
Yeah.
cannabis like influencer, so like obviously you would assume that you know,
Right.
I'm always smoking, but I mean, usually I'm usually too busy to sit
Wow.
down to put something
Yeah.
together to smoke. I'm usually too busy. I'll probably get one blunt rolled up at the end
Wow.
of the day, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just I just don't have the time, or and I just don't have the patience. On top of that,
Yeah.
honestly, I'm just kind of like I'd rather be doing other things. But I would love to, and I've loved to use cannabis as a way to kind of further
Mm-hmm.
my spiritual
Yeah.
and wellness kind of journey and
Yeah.
walk and see like where that
It,
takes me and
it
how I
it
can use
has.
it.
I've read that it has been used in helping people tap into those higher states. Like that's people. Different cultures have done that. Right. Right.
I mean, because there's ayahuasca, people use
Right.
psilocybin. I mean,
It
I feel
is.
like cannabis is right up
The
there
trade
with
off is that
those. Um,
it gets you there easier in the short term, right? And it gets you there easier in higher states of consciousness and perception in some aspects. The trade off is its application over time, right? Is that it can't be, it's not as sustainable over a long period of time, but yet it does work. You see, so with your studies and your
mhm.
practice, have that, I would say, routine, that balance, that estimation for someone to say, hey, it does help you get to elevated states, but maybe not elevated states 3 times a day, 4 times a day. Can't smoke. You see what I'm saying? So, because some people
Right,
will take it and
right,
run with it. You see what I'm saying? So, as part of your
right.
influence and responsibility, but like being able to guide people to say, here's the moderation factor, because that's where I've read that it's just like it's a sustainability thing over time, but it works. Ayahuasca, like all these things have been used to elevate people's consciousness. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Would you ever try
Um,
ayahuasca?
probably
Anything?
not. Probably. Not. I've
Really?
experimented. Let me just
Really?
say I've experimented with some things, and I've had my fun. Right, I've had my fun with all
Okay.
with what there is to have fun with, and you know, my journey has led me to maximize and experiment with the sober practices and see where that takes me. The qigong, the yoga, the meditation, and yeah,
I
taking that
love
because
that. I love that. You look like you're high
I
on life.
appreciate
I
it.
mean, I think that's
Appreciate it.
great.
Oh
I
yeah.
love that.
Hey yo, I was a
Definitely.
psychonaut. I was all that. Like it was it's in me. Like you know, I'm sitting here. I'm like, wait a second. I can. I'm like, I can still tap in. Like, I can still tap
That's
in. So,
crazy.
and do keep in mind too, like, you know, all this oxygenating the body produces dopamine, produces serotonin, produces I don't know if it's acetylcholine, but the happy chemicals. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting my high on. It's a little different. So,
Right,
thanks.
definitely. I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hefen. And I know we're about to hit like 2 hours basically that we've been talking, so I'm gonna let you go because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know it's very valuable. I appreciate you, sharing your experience, sharing your knowledge, and just giving tips and advice and things. Hopefully people, will take the time to check this out. We got a
Yeah,
whole two-part like interview, so this is very lengthy. And I feel like I didn't even really want to touch on
yeah.
all of the things I wanted to, but I had a great time and
Yeah,
I
thank you
learned
as
a
well.
lot. So
And
thank
I
you
want to
again.
say shout out to you for being a medicinal healer and guiding people away from these way more toxic
Thank you.
practices that are being produced in the medical field right now. I think you are so important in helping people transition because it's a huge transition
Thank
for humanity,
it is.
especially our culture, to make to get away from more toxic means of trying to like heal the body. So hopefully this live is your audience can look to it and be able to get some ideas and incorporate maybe the cannabis and the meditation together. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, that yeah,
That is
that'd be
the
awesome.
goal.
Totally something that people need. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really interesting venture that I'm
Okay.
going to try to look into. A lot of people, especially in Ohio, like in our medical industry, because they just passed issue 2, so cannabis is going to be
Okay.
recreationally legal like in a month, basically, but
Yeah.
we've been medical only. But someone brought it to my attention recently that it's so easy to get your med card. It's easy to go and
Mhm.
buy, some tree at your dispensary, but it's like, then what? Like you talk to your doctor about getting prescribed this medical marijuana card. They don't really tell you,
Right.
where to go from there. They just give you the card, and just let you
Right.
go. And and it's like there's a need there for like some sort of therapeutics, some sort of guide, further consultations that need to be done so we can figure out what
For
works
sure.
best for you. What you can do to like implement healing modalities and practices in addition to your cannabis
Right.
consumption, for treating your ailments or,
Right.
whatever you got going on. So I think that's really important. That's something that I want to help people out with. Um, and of course, not just cannabis, like just plant medicine in general. Like I want people to take
Hmm.
plant medicine more seriously, put more trust into nature and God, and just as, how things just grow from Mother Nature, versus
Right.
things that are made in the lab, I mean, so that's something that's really important to me. And I just really appreciate your time. So thanks again. I hope you have a wonderful night and thanks to everyone who came through, checked us out, listened, picked up some gems from Hefen today. And yeah, wholeness and balanced
All
vibrations
right,
to
peace and love.
everybody. Have a wonderful night. See ya.